G'day everyone and welcome back to another video here on the channel, and today I'm going to be going through my tips and predictions for this week's round 7. Now if you guys do go on to enjoy this video, could you please show me that by liking the video as well as subscribing to the channel if you guys are new. Enough wasting your time, let's just get straight into it. Now before we do get into things, I just want to make a quick disclaimer that I do have a tipping comp ahead of the 2025 season. We are currently on 75 members and we're trying to get to 80 members as soon as possible. The link to join is in the description below. If you get first place, you do receive a massive cash prize of $100 as well as an external second and third place prize. Second place gets just $30 and third place will get the 15. In third place currently is Gus Footy with 40 points. Second place is Dead Fishpool with 41 points, and first place, the current leader, is Mr. Bigger with 42 points. But my tips on the other hand, this week, certainly not great. I scored a 4 out of 9 this week. That is easily my worst week of tipping in probably over a year. First tip I got incorrect was Brisbane v Collingwood. I am a Collingwood supporter and I usually do have a lot of confidence in my side, but going into this game, Brisbane were undefeated and I just thought we wouldn't be getting up, especially not away. But we did, and we got up by a fair bit as well, over 50. Next game was Melbourne v Fremantle. I tipped the Dockers. Melbourne were in very poor form. It was at the MCG though the game was being played at. It probably didn't have a crowd over 20k, I wouldn't have thought. But yeah, Fremantle, they're definitely a lot more informed than Melbourne were. Unfortunately, they just could not play away. Richmond v Gold Coast, that was easily upset of the round and arguably upset of the year. I mean, we saw earlier in the year Richmond put off an upset against Carlton. We thought that might have been upset of the year, but no, this one definitely takes the cake. Gold Coast were easily one of the best teams in the competition, and Richmond, well, they got the wooden spoon last year. I mean, they're one of the worst in the current AFL comp, but they still got the win over Gold Coast, and you would have been stupid to pick Richmond. Well, not really, because they won. Another one I got incorrect was one of the closest games of the round, Sydney v Port Adelaide. The Swans and Port, they're very similar in skill level, though it does look like after this week, Port Adelaide is certainly back in finals contention after a bit of a slump to start off the season. They got that away win by 8 points against the Swans, and there's certainly a lot of thoughts going into the Sydney Swans, and they're gonna have to work something out if they want to have a good season this year. Gonna take a massive turnaround, but we saw it with the Hawks last year. Speaking of which, I tipped the Hawks this week, and unfortunately they lost in a close one against Geelong on Easter Monday, which was definitely very upsetting for my tipping. Enough complaining, let's just move on to this week's AFL tipping for round 7. On the Thursday, we have Melbourne taking on the Richmond Tigers at 7:30 PM, and this game will be at the MCG. In hindsight, some people may be looking over this game or just thinking this will be a very boring game to watch, but both teams are very, very similar in skill level, which isn't saying much considering how bad these two teams are at the moment. Melbourne have only got the 1 win this season while the Tigers have got the 2, but both teams are coming off a win after seeing what they did in round 6. Melbourne's Clayton Oliver has started off the season very, very well, as well as Christian Petrarca after coming back from a very serious injury. Richmond, on the other hand, despite them being a guaranteed bottom 4 side, they managed to pull off one of the biggest upsets this year, well currently at least, and they defeated one of the best sides in the league. And that was obviously with the help of Loston, Taranto, and even Morris Frioli. He didn't get too much of the footy, but when he did, he definitely made the most of his opportunities. I do believe the Tigers are very much capable of getting the win over the Melbourne Demons, and they'll win the game by 7 points. To kick off the Friday, this is Anzac Day. We've got the Collingwood Magpies taking on the Essendon Bombers. This will be at 3:20 PM, and obviously it's at the MCG. I understand that this is the Anzac Day clash. I understand that it is very typically close, but I do just see a very big skill gap between both of these sides. Collingwood, they're currently first on the ladder and arguably heavy premiership contenders, while Essendon, to say the least, they've had a very poor start to the year, or very average. Jan Houston will be back from suspension. Lachie Schultz was supposed to come back, but unfortunately the signs of him coming back this week are very, very low, and we're hoping for a Charlie West debut sometime soon. Obviously a new recruit from the 2025 draft. I'd say he'll definitely make his debut sometime this year, and what a better way to start off your career on Anzac Day. The Pies definitely need to keep an eye on Peter Wright from Essendon after he kicked 6 goals in his return game last week. But I'll still back my boys the Pies to get the job done, and because it's Anzac Day, we'll go a bit of a closer game than it should be, and I'll go the Pies by 13. The second Anzac Day game, we've got Fremantle taking Adelaide at 8:10 PM at Optus. A very late start to this game, but it's very, very confusing time schedules when it's over in Perth. It's either a very early game or a very late game. Throng and Brayshaw have had an elite start to the year in the Fremantle midfield, while Adelaide's Crouch and Dawson have also done the same. But Josh Tracy, a huge Coleman medal contender, he's going to be very strong up in that Fremantle forward line. Shea Bolton has certainly found some form this year and is definitely a major part to their side, and even if he was to miss 1 or 2 games, that would definitely kill them. But don't be overlooking Thilthorpe or Fogarty, who have kicked a combined total of 32 goals this year. Although since it is being played at Optus, I think Freo are very capable of of getting this one done. And you know what? Screw it, let's go 13 points again. To kick off the Saturday, we have St Kilda taking on the Brisbane Lions at 1:20 p.m. and this is at Marvel Stadium. Unfortunately, despite St Kilda having that home ground advantage and are typically pretty good at Marvel Stadium, Brisbane are just a lot better of a side than they are, and it's going to be pretty hard to beat them. Before last week, Brisbane were first on the ladder and undefeated. They were also the reigning premiers, and they still are to this day, while the Saints have shown very little positives out of this season so far. Unfortunately, I think even with the likes of Wilkie, Wangani Malira, and new recruit Jack McRae, they're still going to struggle to get over the line, and the Lions will receive a comfortable 37-point victory over the Saints. Next up, we have Port Adelaide taking on North Melbourne at 4:15 p.m, and this is at the Adelaide Oval. Yes, North Melbourne did look like they were slightly on the rise after that win against Melbourne a few weeks back, where they won the game by over 50 points. And yes, Port Adelaide did start off the year very, very poorly, and it looks like they could certainly be on the downfall and was completely out of finals contention. They found a bit of form the last 2 weeks, getting that unexpected win against Hawthorn, and obviously last week defeating the Sydney Swans away by 8 points. You'd be silly not to tip Port Adelaide, unfortunately, and I'm going to go them by a very high margin. Let's go 41 points. And to finish things off, we've got GWS take on the Western Bulldogs. This will be at Manuka Oval at 7:35 p.m. Doesn't look like this week's Saturday games are going to be very entertaining to watch. Yes, this game could be close, but I think it'll be a bit low scoring. After the Dogs did thrash the Saints by 70 points last week, they're starting to look a bit good this year. I don't know if they're that good to the point where they could be playing finals in 2025, but they're certainly on the rise a bit more now. Well, with the Giants currently sitting at 4th and the Bulldogs currently sitting at 8th, Dogs will certainly be wanting to prove themselves this week. But we just know how strong of a side GWS at Manuka. They very rarely lose there. Although the Dogs did have the return of Marcus Bonampali last week, and 2 goals and 30 disposals came along with him. Sam Darcy is officially out after an injury in last week's game, and I believe he's going to be out for 4 to 5 months. So unfortunately, he probably won't play another game this year unless the Dogs potentially make finals, and even then, there's no guarantees he'll be well enough to play. I think currently both these sides are very similar in skill level, and it's going to be a very competitive game throughout, which is why I think this will be low scoring. It's going to be very difficult to score goals, but I'm still going to tip the Giants. I'm still going to trust my gut, and I'll go them by 9 points. Now moving on to the Sunday, we have the Suns taking on the Swans. This will be at 1:15 p.m, and it's going to be taking place at People's First Stadium. And I mean, usually I just straight away tip the Gold Coast Suns, but after last week's loss against Richmond, it's really hard to trust them going into this game. I mean, not to say that the Swans are going too well after having a 2-4 win ratio, and the Suns, they have Anderson, who's been playing really well, as well as Rowell and Took Miller. And I won't overlook new recruit John Noble after having an average of 24 disposals. Those are numbers he could only dream of when he played at Collingwood last year. Ben King is currently averaging 3 goals a game. He's certainly a heavy Coleman medal contender. And despite the usual Brodie Grundy, Isaac Heaney and Chad Warner, there isn't too much positives or too much advantages, I should say, for the Swans heading into this game. We just know how strong the Suns are at People's First Stadium. Yeah, they struggle away very, very often, but I think the Swans are going to struggle to defeat them at People's First Stadium. But I think there will be some slight hope throughout the game, and the Suns will only win by 20 points. Next, we have the Carlton Blues taking on the Geelong Cats. This will be at 3:20 p.m, and it's going to be at the MCG. Unfortunately for Blues fans, their fun has to come to an end eventually. The Cats are starting to look pretty good once again after getting that win against Adelaide back in Gather Round, and also defeating the Hawks on Easter Monday. Yes, the Blues do have Cripps, Curnow, Wiedering, Nick Haynes, who has also started the year very, very well, but they can't just be relying on 4 players and the occasional other players that seem to step up, especially when the Cats have people like Bailey Smith, who for all we know could run away with the sneaky Brownlow this year. Even Max Holmes, he's an absolute gun, and with Dangerfield and Cameron up forward, this Cat side is going to be pretty hard to beat. So I'm just going to get straight to the point. The Cats going to get the job done by 29 points. And to finish off the round, we have the Hawthorn Hawks taking on the West Coast Eagles. It is the Hawks home game at Marvel Stadium. Hawks by 53. No explanation is needed. Take a look at the ladder, it says it all. I mean, the Eagles, they're not great, are they? The Hawks, yes, they've lost 2 games in a row, but they're absolutely insane. If they lose to the Eagles, their season's over. Okay, I know it's only round 7, but if the Hawks lose this week, their season's over. Especially when the Eagles have not gotten a win yet. But that will wrap up today's video. I hope you all did enjoy. If you did, could you please show me that by liking the video, as well as subscribing to the channel if you guys are new. And I hope to see you all in the next video that I post here on the channel.